Hi, I'm Allie.
I'm Nick.
And this is But Have You Tried? The new-ish?
Yeah.
New-ish podcast from the Howe Public Library. Where we take turns swapping off things that we've enjoyed at some point in our life. Today, I have given Nick a very special assignment.
You have.
I'm very curious to hear your thoughts.
I've been tight-lipped so far. I was worried you were going to say it was a new age podcast for the Howe Public Library, and that has some different.
I'm trying to imagine what that would even mean.
I assume we'd have to have crystals of some sort.
Probably.
I don't know. I'm not an expert, but
I feel like it'd be easy enough to bring in one or two crystals if we really felt the
I think
need.
we could. Yeah.
I feel like I have some that I found and collected
Really?
A crow when I was a child.
Really?
You know?
Do crows collect crystals?
They collect whatever they
odds and
want.
ends.
Yeah.
Okay, and sometimes they completely demolish our front lawn with their poop.
Yep.
So
I was looking at the rhododendrons the other day, which are blooming now.
Yeah.
And they're so beautiful. And I was like, wow, this is great. And I walked right up close to it and I was like, wow, the leaves are still covered in crow poop.
They sure are. I got ambitious the other day and I tried to hose off the side of the building. No dice.
That's really unfortunate.
No dice. I don't know why we're talking about poop, Allie, when the topic today is what?
Jane Austen.
Jane Austen. You can't pivot harder from crow poop to Jane Austen, but we've done it.
We somehow made it work.
That's right. So as you might recall, in our last episode, when I generously asked Allie to watch The Goonies, she asked me to read a Jane Austen novel and watch several movies. Is that okay? So
that's correct.
Not exactly an even switch, but that's okay. That's okay because we never said that it had to be an even switch, and that's fine. So you had suggested to me that I read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, the late Jane Austen. She has passed away.
She has.
And watch the Emma movie from the 90s with Gwyneth Paltrow
Yes.
and Ewan McGregor. These were my assignments. Okay. I have done some research on Jane Austen, and I shall now present to you my findings.
Okay. It's book report time. Let's hear it.
That's right. To start with, from janeausten.org, here is a little quick summary. Jane Austen, the world-renowned English author, completed just 6 works during her lifetime and yet managed to command a legion of fans around the world. Her timeless stories have been turned into a plethora of movies. I like that word. Plethora.
Right? It's a good one.
Television shows and modern adaptations, in addition to being translated into multiple languages to cross-cultural boundaries. Today, she remains as popular as ever and is revered as much as any literary figure in the history of the English language. Mm-hmm. Too much? Right on. What do you think?
Probably right on.
Okay.
Also, a fun fact.
Yes.
She's on, I think it's the 10-pound notes.
I have that in my fact. Yes. Let's see.
And I'm like, why do we have all these? I mean, not to criticize,
no.
boring white guys.
Hit it. Yeah.
And they get Jane Austen.
I'm with you.
This is so unfair.
I know. Yeah. You're absolutely right, though. Let me find my information here. In 2017, Jane Austen was put on the 10-pound note, replacing Charles Darwin.
Oh.
So the 10-pound note evolved.
Oh my goodness.
A little Darwinism joke for you there. All right, Jane Austen lived from 1775 to 1817, dying at the age of 41. Early.
That is pretty
That's
early.
early stuff.
Although back then, less early.
That's true. She was downright geriatric for those standards. She published 4 novels in her lifetime: Sense and Sensibility in 1811, Pride and Prejudice in 1813, Mansfield Park in 1814, Emma in 1815. 2 additional novels, several shorts, unfinished works, and all that were published posthumously, most notably Northanger Abbey. How do you say that? How do you say it?
I say it Northanger Abbey.
Northanger.
I don't know if there's... I don't know what the right way is, but that's always how I've said it.
All right. Well, the one about the Abbey, right? Yes. Is it even about an Abbey? I don't remember.
Barely.
Do we have an Abbey in it? I do recall there's an Abbey
yes.
involved. All right. That was published in 1818, as was Persuasion, also in 1818. Her work has been translated into 35 languages, according to the Jane Austen Literacy Foundation, janeaustenlf.org. Pride and Prejudice, in addition to Jane Austen appearing on a 10-pound note, Pride and Prejudice was featured on a postage stamp for its 200th anniversary in the year 2013.
That's pretty cool.
You know what else was featured on a postage stamp? The late Elvis Aaron Presley.
That makes sense.
Elvis Presley
I could
postage
definitely
stamp.
see that happening.
Oh, yeah. Probably more than once. But I remember it was like a big deal.
Okay.
It also fueled the Elvis is dead conspiracy because only dead people can be on postage stamps. And there was a long time where they didn't do it because there was some question. That's the conspiracy side of it.
Okay.
Once in a college speech class, we had to present a controversial topic, and mine was Elvis faked his death. And it killed. No pun intended. It killed. People liked the speech. So, anywho. Pride and Prejudice has been adapted in film and television many times over, starting with the 1938 film and right up and through the 2016. I know your favorite is the BBC Colin Firth. Who else is
great.
in that? I don't know.
Jennifer L. is Lizzie Bennet.
Okay.
I don't know the names of anyone else who's in that.
I guess I didn't realize until like snooping around here that Bridget Jones's Diary is sort of meant to be a Jane Austen.
I cannot speak to from personal experience, but it would not surprise me.
Okay.
So many things are. It's like secretly sprinkled everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, on a local note, and shout out to Kim, who works the front desk here, I asked her to do a little research and find out how many copies of Pride and Prejudice alone, so not even including all the other Jane Austen novels.
Just Pride and Prejudice.
How many copies of Pride and Prejudice, not including films either, just the book,
just books,
are in our library system? And our library system is made up of 48 individual libraries. There are 76 copies of Pride and Prejudice.
That's more than one per library.
The Southern Tier Library System. This is a good time to shout out StarCat too. If you're local, StarCat is a way you can manage your account. You do have to change your password in the coming months here, which is annoying, we know, but you got to do it. So StarCat, and you could also find all these copies of Jane Austen. But that's it for me. I have some more Pride and Prejudice specific information that I want to share when we get into that point. But what did I miss? What do you got?
I'm not sure that you missed too much.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm a professional.
You're welcome.
A professional, you know.
Just some like interesting tidbits about her life.
I'll decide.
Okay. The verdict is out.
All right.
Despite writing primarily works that deal with romance in some capacity, she never married herself or had children. I know, isn't that interesting?
Interesting, yes.
There was this kind of like, I wouldn't say scandalous, but like this much noticed incident early in her life where she and her neighbor Tom Lefroy were like in love. She like admitted to her sister that she was in love with him.
Okay.
But like he didn't really have much money and his family was like absolutely not, and her family didn't have much money, so they did not get married. And this has very much captured everyone's imagination.
Sure.
So that's
there's movies about that, right? Isn't there?
I think that's what
Hathaway
Becoming
one?
Jane is about. Yeah.
Okay.
Which I've seen. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
It's a little not that Jane Austen-y, but it is a fun movie.
Okay. All right.
So she also received a proposal of marriage from Harris Bigwither, a childhood friend of the family.
She could have been Jane Bigwither.
Right? What a different world we'd be living in.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. She originally accepted just kind of from a practical standpoint, but then the next day she rescinded her acceptance. Which is also a very Jane Austen plot kind of thing to do.
Tell me a little bit about like how did you discover her? Like what's your favorite book of her? Have you read them all? Give me a little Allie backstory here.
So I feel like this story is going to reveal a lot of things about my childhood. So my sister is about 2 years older than I am.
Right. Okay.
And she's always been a big reader and was very precocious in her reading from a young age.
Okay.
So when she was 9, I don't remember if someone had told her about Pride and Prejudice. Maybe we'd watched the movie. I don't remember. But she somehow got it in her head that she wanted to read Pride and Prejudice.
Okay.
So she checked out a copy from the library.
Shout out to libraries. Woo!
Absolutely. It was like this red, like bejeweled, very fancy looking copy.
Yeah.
And she read it, as 9-year-olds do, you know?
Okay. That's a little impressive.
Yeah.
That's a little impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to your parents.
Right. We were homeschooled at the time.
Okay. There you go.
She was also reading Berenstain Bears chapter books at the same time, just to like, balance things out. But, so
there's a lot of nuance in those Berenstain Bears. You know, family dynamics, forbidden romance. You know what I mean?
Sometimes the drama in those Berenstain Bears is really a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So naturally, being 2 years younger and not necessarily capable of reading Pride and Prejudice.
Sure.
And also being, feeling the need to distinguish myself from my sister. I was like, no, Jane Austen is stupid. This isn't happening.
This is kind of a thread with you. This has come up before.
This has come up before.
This rebellious streak where you're like, I shan't do what's expected of me.
And I feel like that's about as rebellious as I've ever gotten. It's being like, well, my sister likes Jane Austen, so I don't.
Yeah, wow. What a rascal you were not reading Pride and Prejudice at 7. I can't even imagine.
So I want to say maybe a few years after this, she recommended to me that I read Sense and Sensibility.
Okay.
Or I think maybe she suggested that I have Dad read it to me.
Okay.
And so I tried to read like the first page, which I will say the first page of Sense and Sensibility is the most boring thing you could possibly read. It is not right into the center of the action.
Well, this has a
It's like
famously
talking about her
strong
grandfather.
start, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Pride and Prejudice is kind
It
of
has
a
a great
classic.
opening line.
Yeah, like I was familiar with that before reading it. But anyway, your story.
So I failed to read this because the first page of Sense and Sensibility was really boring, and I was
First page is
maybe
pretty key.
8.
Pretty key.
pretty key.
Yeah.
So I became really mad that she would suggest to me that I do this impossible task.
What a dummy.
I know, right? And I basically swore off Jane Austen for years.
Okay.
And didn't really have any more kind of encounter with Jane Austen.
Okay.
Until I was probably in middle school. My family was going on a road trip, and we listened to an audiobook of Emma.
Yeah.
And it was a great time.
Okay.
I enjoyed it so much.
Okay.
So I'd say Emma is probably my favorite, if only for that kind of nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
And I just think the story is really fun.
I got to tell you, watching Emma and reading Pride and Prejudice at the same time, I kept being like, now which creepy priest is trying to marry whom, and who's weird old
that's
aunt
a really
is getting
fair
in the way?
question.
And I kept being like, wait, no. But yeah,
Yes.
I survived. Yeah.
So sometime after this, my sister read Pride and Prejudice out loud to me.
Okay.
I enjoyed it a lot. I've since read all of her completed novels.
Yeah.
There's some juvenilia and incompletes that I
Okay.
intend to read but have not.
All right. I'm always fascinated when an author has what is it? Sanditon is hers, right? Is that?
Yeah, Sanditon.
Yeah. And that's a BBC thing now. They're continuing
Yeah,
that.
I
and
saw
that's-
that they were doing that.
That's been picked up over the years. Other people have finished it, but I'm always kind of Dickens has the Edwin Drood novel that's
Okay.
unfinished, or Raymond Chandler's Philip Marlowe novels,
Right.
went unfinished, and Robert V. Parker picked those up and stuff. So it's always kind of interesting when people do that, and I think there's always a debate on whether or not that's good, because you're never really seeing
Right.
the true resolution, but it's sort of an interesting exercise to be Jane Austen has given you a starter story, and now it's up to you to finish it. So.
And there are so many sequel stories to Jane
sure.
Austen. There's Death Comes to Pemberley
Yes.
and all kinds of stuff like that. And so many that are from a different character's point of view,
Yeah.
Jane Fairfax from Emma. I think there's a novel from
Okay,
her point of
okay.
view. I read a little bit of it in the writing style. I was like, nope, you're
Pass.
not.
Hard pass.
You're comparing yourself, you're setting yourself up to be compared to Jane Austen,
Yeah.
and it's not working in your favor.
Okay.
Yep.
Speaking of adaptations, there is Marvel Comics did a thing around 2010 or so where they were taking some classics and turning them into graphic novels.
Oh, that's fun.
And so there's an Emma one, and there is a Pride and Prejudice one. So after having read the book, I read the graphic novel as well. And it's funny because all of the covers for it are designed to look like a Vogue magazine, something like that. But the adaptation, it's by Nancy Butler, is pretty solid, I think. I don't know that I'm just not sure. I'm not sure if you would like it or not. I mean, I know that you like graphic novels and you get it.
Right.
But I felt like it was a pretty faithful adaptation. And while, of course, you can't get all the nuance that you can get from the book, I thought it would be a pretty good, gateway for somebody who is, put off by picking up something like Jane Austen, because you really do get the beats, and I think if you had that in your mind, reading the book would come a little bit more naturally because you have
something
a
in
shorthand
mind
for the character. I didn't read the Emma one because I hated the art, but the Pride and Prejudice one I actually thought was pretty good and would recommend it, I think, both to Jane Austen fans and just somebody who maybe is curious about the story, because I thought it was a pretty good way to go overall. So you eventually made your way through all of the Jane Austens?
I did.
You did. Okay.
I did.
But Emma is your sentimental favorite.
I think so.
Okay. So then why did you tell me to read Pride and Prejudice?
I feel like Pride and Prejudice is the most iconic Jane Austen.
Okay.
And I mean, it's also... See, it's hard to say which one of them would be my favorite. I also really like Pride and Prejudice. I also think Persuasion is really cool.
Yeah.
They're all good. What can I say?
Okay.
But I feel like Pride and Prejudice, if you're going to read one Jane Austen novel, I feel like Pride and Prejudice is probably the one to go for.
Okay.
Because it's definitely the most iconic, and I feel like it's a very good representation of her work and her role in popular media in general.
Does Jane Austen have a thing against moms? This is my question from Pride and Prejudice, where the mom is just sort of in the way, I feel like, a lot of the times. And Lizzie seems to have such a better relationship with her dad. And then over in Emma, it's mom's dead, and that's great for us.
Right.
That works out pretty well.
In general, I would say that the families that her main characters have are not always... They don't always super do a great job of supporting the main character or understanding them.
I see.
And so it's sometimes some of them are dead, or the dad is ridiculous, or the mom is ridiculous, or both the dad and the older sister are super vain and absurd, and the younger sister is just extremely self-centered and clueless.
Okay.
And so often there's at least one like sibling or something that
Okay.
they have kind of a stronger connection with, like Elizabeth and Jane in Pride
Yeah.
and Prejudice. But yeah, I have to say it raises some questions about her relationship with her parents and her family in general.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly some good meat to be had from exploring those things, and I think she uses it well, both in Emma and in Pride and Prejudice, at least. All right, let's stick with Pride and Prejudice for a moment. Here is what Barnes & Noble lists as their publisher's summary. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. So begins Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen's classic novel of manners and mores in early 19th century England. As the Bennets prepare for their 5 grown daughters to enter into society, each shows personality traits that illuminate their future prospects as wives. Jane, the oldest, is the most demure and traditional, and Lydia, the youngest, the most headstrong and impulsive, I'll say. Spoiler alert. Attention centers on haughty, second-born Elizabeth and her blossoming relationship with the dashing but aloof Fitzwilliam Darcy.
It's quite the name, right?
Yeah, you're going to name your firstborn Fitzwilliam in honor
Definitely
of...
not.
Okay. Oh, no. Okay. All right. Adversaries at first in the endless rounds of balls, parties, and social gatherings, they soon develop a grudging respect for one another that blossoms into romance when each comes to appreciate the tender feelings that course beneath the veneer of their propriety and reserve. First published in 1813, Pride and Prejudice is one of the most popular novels in English literature and a cornerstone of Jane Austen's reputation as one of the greatest novelists of all time.
Da, da, da.
Okay. Are you ready?
I am ready.
So here's the thing. Allie.
Okay.
I never quite got over the hump of almost having to like translate what was going on in my mind. I wanted it to just sort of like flow over me, so it was just kind of like coming naturally, but I found myself having to put a little bit more work into it, which is to be expected. I think when you read any classic, you have to do that. So I don't think I ever really got to the point where I was like, this was a delight to read. Mm-hmm. But I was very intrigued with the sort of soap opera of it all. Like, and I mean that as a positive way. As somebody who's watched all 10 seasons of Beverly Hills 90210, I love me some good like intrigue and romance and who's going to end up together and all of the varying complexities from like having to deal with, you know, societal expectations and what it means, the different like levels of people's social and sort of political standings are. All of that stuff I found really fascinating. And some of the twists that get thrown in there that I didn't see coming, like she'll get a letter and I'll be like, what? Why would you do that? You know, I was really into. So I think like overall, my experience was a positive one. And I'm glad to have read it. And I'm glad to get all the Pride and Prejudice memes now that I see.
There are so many.
So I do think it was a positive. Has it turned me into someone who's like, well, I have to read Sense and Sensibility now? No, it didn't. It didn't do that. How do you feel about that? Is that an acceptable?
I think that's acceptable.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, the ideal is for you to be like, 5 more novels, let's go.
I love it. Let's do it.
But like, you know, reasonable expectations.
Okay. I don't know. When you said Jane Austen, I was kind of like, I'm not going to like this. And so I do think I came out much more positive than I was expecting to. So there you go. I subverted my own expectations. So that speaks to her work here. But tell me a little bit about, I know you've covered it a little bit, but like Pride and Prejudice, like what about the story like really pops to you?
I feel like there's a few things. One is that just like the beats of the story, I feel like are really well designed from a plot point.
Yes. I agree with that.
And so like the moments where like different things happen and your expectations change, her expectations change, I feel like are really unexpected. And even when I already, of course, know everything that's going to happen, I still find kind of the like turns that it takes to be interesting. I also feel like there's just something really timeless and fantastic about Elizabeth Bennet that just like has so much appeal. Her like her sassiness, her sense of decorum, but also like she's gonna like, you know, basically make fun of Darcy to his face and that kind of thing. I think those are some of the main qualities that make it really spark.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. I think that's something that I did appreciate about it was that, like, I think one of the things that makes it timeless is the characters, and I think you're right, Lizzie in particular, has a feel that, like, it could be something that was written today. I mean, that's something that I always appreciate about Dickens, like some of the wit and you know, just the turns of phrase in the journeys that the characters go on are stuff that still would sell today. Right. You know, and I think that's definitely true here. And I just like the you know, her and Darcy, like obviously it is a romance, but it doesn't take on all the connotations that I think, you know, whether fair or unfair, when you say a romance novel, people have certain expectations of that. And I don't think that this really like does that at all. But I think their relationship is kind of fun. I mean, I like that he's just sort of like, I mean, she's fine, but she's nothing special. You know, he's just so like blunt about that. He's sort of like, I mean, I've seen worse. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and then when we have, I mean, I guess spoiler alert for a book that's 210 years old this year. But when we get to proposal and he's just kind of like, look, you're the worst. I don't really care for you. I don't know what about the whole mess that's you appeals to me, but it does. So let's get married. And she's kind of like, shut up and go away. Like, why would you ever think that would work? Like, you're dumb. That I really liked.
Yep.
I really appreciated that. As it sort of comes back around and he you know, writes himself and he does this great thing for Lydia and her family. Like, I like that. Like, he stumbles and it's such a stupid thing to do. And I like that she just calls him on that, you know?
Yep.
I really liked the scene with her and it's his aunt, right? Sort of.
Yes.
Where the aunt is kind of like, promise me you'll never marry him. And she's like, you need to go away from me. I don't want to be talking to you anymore. I don't know why we're having
so
this
done with that
conversation. She is. She's just like, I don't like you, so get out of my face. And I was sort of surprised by that, like by some of the things like that happened. I was like, well, I didn't see that coming. So I did like that. And I feel like it's a pretty tidy ending as far as, you know, stories go, because there's so many moving pieces and there's so many.
There's a lot going on.
Things could go sideways in like a million different ways. And by the end, it feels tidy, but not in a way that's like cloying. You know what I mean? You don't feel like, oh, of course, you know, like whatever. It seems like, yeah, you know, we've all been through some stuff and here we are at the end. So I felt pretty satisfying with the ending as it was. So yeah, I mean, all these are positives, right?
Right. Yeah,
so
exactly.
I should get points for that. Here's where you can decide if I've broken the rules or not, because I did make a little bit of a pivot. I did make an executive decision because I put Emma on hold, right?
Okay.
And it came in and it was the wrong version. It was the Anya Taylor-Joy one from
Okay.
2020. And so I was like, no, that's wrong. And so I put hold on the right one, the Gwyneth Paltrow one. And I put it in. And I was watching it with my wife. We started watching it, and I was probably like 20 minutes into it. And I was just like, "This isn't going to work for me. I'm just not going to like this. Like, I don't see like it getting over this hump." And so I was like, maybe we'll try the more recent one and see if that like clicks for me a little bit more. And so I did. I stopped it at that point, and I switched to the newer movie and watched that one in its entirety and really liked it.
Okay,
like I liked it quite a bit. So I know you said the Gwyneth Paltrow one, but I thought maybe you would understand.
No, I understand.
Okay, all right.
I'd rather that than you just be like, this is horrible. That's it.
I could feel it. I was like, something about like the made-for-TV like aesthetic of it. I just wasn't getting the charm. It was just like not clicking for me. Have you seen this? Have you seen the Anya Taylor-Joy one?
Yes.
Okay. How do you feel about it?
I like it. There's a number of things about it that I think are kind of weird.
Yeah.
But like, I enjoyed watching the movie a lot. There's elements that I was like, yeah, this is really great.
Yeah. Well, I was watching this with my wife, who also loves the Gwyneth Paltrow version, and her takeaway was like, this one worked, like it was good and it was enjoyable, but the other one is a better representation of the story and the characters.
I think that's probably true.
Okay.
Some of it is a matter of interpretation. Like,
Okay.
Emma is a book where the main character is, I'd say, more significantly flawed than a lot of main characters in books tend to be.
Like a little like vapid in places.
Yeah, and just like she meddles, you know, like she likes to be in control. She has ideas for how things should go, but they're not necessarily the right ideas for how things should go.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's a quote when Jane Austen was writing this book where she was like, I'm going to write a heroine that no one will like but me, basically, which I guess didn't turn out to be true because plenty of people like Emma.
They do, yeah.
But when you read the book, you can tell that she's trying her best and does genuinely care about people. And there's all these little moments where she'll do something that's genuinely very kind of without, you know, like without any of the like meddling and, you know, all that stuff that she does. And so I guess there's different interpretations when you read the book on how good of a person and good of a character she is.
Okay.
And so I think if you have a more positive interpretation of her, that makes sense with the Gwyneth Paltrow movie. But if you're more like, yeah, she's the main character, but boy, I think that makes more sense with the Anya Taylor-Joy movie.
Okay. And
That's my
you
take.
But your take on the character is a little bit more Gwyneth Paltrow-y.
I would say
Is
so.
that what you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the flaws of Emma certainly comes through in the newer movie, and I think it played out to me a little bit more as like immaturity. Like I felt like her intentions were still good, but she wasn't thinking things through all the way.
Which makes sense because she's like, I think like 21 or something. She's supposed to be like, and she doesn't have a mom, and she's just kind of like basically the head of the household.
She's sort of thrust into that role early. Yeah. Yeah. So this film came out in 2020. Great year.
Right.
Great year. So
it was a good year.
Wonderful. Directed by Autumn de Wilde, adapted by Eleanor Catton, Anna Taylor-Joy, of course, as Emma. Bill Nighy as her dad just cracked me up. Like everything he did in that movie was just so funny to me. Like he's just such an odd. I mean, that actor is always like delightful in everything that he's in, but I felt like it really worked there. Their relationship, I felt like, worked really well. This movie was almost like, what if Wes Anderson directed an Emma movie?
It very
like it
much
just
has
sort
that
of,
feeling.
Yeah,
like the colors,
exactly,
the costuming, everything. Mrs. Elton's hair and like her hats. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It just like some of the pausing and some of the like still shots and everything just were giving me a lot of vibes of a Wes Anderson movie, which I thought suited it. And I thought like visually it is a very impressive movie all around. And I mean, I didn't have any trouble following the beats of the story. There was a couple times where, because my wife like knows all about it, I had to sort of be like, wait, now which one is that? And, she'd sort of clarify. So that was helpful to have like a little pop-up trivia sitting next to me while watching the movie. But I had a really positive takeaway from that. I liked it quite a bit.
Nice.
So I'm sorry that I pivoted, but
That's
I feel
okay,
like it was for the greater good.
I have to
But
ask,
have you tried? Yes, okay.
What did you think of the nosebleed? This is like one of the biggest topics among Jane Austen fans.
Where does that fall?
This movie. Right when he proposes, she gets this nosebleed.
Oh.
Which is like an anime joke stereotype kind of a thing.
Okay.
And so I was kind of like, what's happening?
I guess I mean, it works for me. I felt like it sort of subverted like a moment that should have been like serious or whatever, and like for that to come. Not that it was funny, but it kind of like, I think the film did so much to make everything seem like beautiful and like really visually appealing. So to have her have a nosebleed in that moment was surprising to me. I didn't mind it. You're not a fan?
I mean, I have mixed feelings. Like, I think it's very interesting in terms of subverting like the expectations. Yeah. But like on a number of levels, I'm kind of like, what?
Okay.
I don't know. But also some of that is like having read the book and watched other adaptations and then being like, wait,
so,
what are you doing
here? So no
here?
nosebleed in other versions. This is
unique.
To this.
The nosebleed is unique.
And so are people not liking it overall, would you say?
There's mixed feelings.
There's strong. Okay. All right.
It's a big debate.
Yeah, I get that. But no, overall, I had a good time. And like I said, like sort of doing them concurrently, I did have to kind of separate in my mind because there are, not that the plots are necessarily similar, but, because they're both sort of dealing with some matchmaking elements and like family and class and everything. So I did have to untangle this occasionally in my mind. But I thought it was good overall. And then I followed it up with A Clueless Chaser, which I have never seen before, which is crazy. Because
I know. That does surprise me,
honestly. This came
honestly.
out in 95. Like, it came out in my heyday, so I don't know why I didn't watch this, but I really liked Clueless. I thought it was really good. And I am glad to have watched Emma first because, not everything has a direct correlation. Obviously, the beats are there. Some really obvious scenes that felt almost like only slight changes. Right. And, of course, Elton's name is Elton in both, which was kind of fun. Like, that was a nice little Easter egg there. But no, I thought it was great. This is kind of embarrassing, but I did have a poster of Alicia Silverstone from this movie on my wall as a teenager.
That's really funny.
And it was because I had a crush on her from Batman and Robin, where she played Batgirl.
That's really
But there wasn't
funny.
like a Batgirl poster, so yeah. So there's one, she puts on an outfit at one point, and I was like, I had that poster, so that's hilarious. There's my 90s collection to Clueless. But no, I really like the movie. This is one of my wife's favorites, so like, she was like, finally we're watching Clueless. But I loved it. It's kind of an all-star cast too. Like people kept popping up and I was like, oh, it's that person. Oh, it's her, Yeah. So I just thought it was hilarious. Really well done. Like I get really why it stands up as well as it does, why it's still kind of an iconic thing. When did you watch Clueless?
I didn't watch it until I was in high school.
Okay.
And I knew that it existed and was like an Emma kind of
okay.
thing. And I think I watched it with some friends and I was like, At first, I was very uncertain about it. I was like, huh.
Yeah.
And I think I was expecting a little too much Emma-ness from
Yeah.
it. But I watched it again sometime after, and I was like, okay, this is
so you
fun.
came around. You
Yeah.
came around. You know what I love? That I mean, this is only like vaguely related, but 10 Things I Hate About You.
I also love that.
Okay,
What a
which
great
was,
one.
Yeah, it really was, which was kind of similar in that it was, this 90s thing based on classic, which it's
It has
Taming of
very
the Shrew,
similar
obviously.
vibes somehow.
Yeah, it did. It made me think of that. Both of them had TV shows, and I did watch the Clueless TV show that was on.
Oh.
So I did see like some of it. So as I was watching it, I was like, "Oh right, I did watch this, just not the
funny.
movie, only the TV show." I don't know,
That's
weird
funny.
thing, but yeah, I think pretty successful overall.
Nice.
You've broadened my horizons,
I'll take
which
the
was
win.
the goal, right?
That's true.
So now you can sing Jailhouse Rock, and I can quote Pride and Prejudice. I mean, maybe not quote, but I can get references.
You can get the first line, and
That's true.
that's all most people can quote
there you
anyway.
go.
So
Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, listen, Jane Austen has been great, but have you tried Indiana Jones?
I have not.
This blows my mind that you've had no interaction with Indiana Jones.
I've gone through 23 years
and you haven't.
Never
nothing.
a single Indiana Jones.
Okay. Now I know that I just made you watch an 80s Spielberg-y kind of movie in the Goonies, but Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is coming out right now, during our time of recording. So I knew Indiana Jones was going to be on the list, and I feel like now's the time.
It makes sense.
So-
It really does.
Can you commit to watching all of the Indiana Jones movies?
How many are there?
Well, there's the classic trilogy, and then there's Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which came out like in 2008.
Okay, so 4 Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
movies.
And then
Okay.
maybe see Dial of Destiny.
Okay, I think
Ramp
we can.
up
We
to
can probably
seeing
make
Dial
that
of
happen.
Destiny. Okay, you can.
I
think
just
you can
made you
happen.
read a whole Jane Austen novel,
That's
so I
true.
feel like
That's true. I honestly, I don't remember the last time I watched an Indiana Jones movie, but it's easily been 10 years since I've seen
Okay.
any of them. So like I'm planning to go back and watch them, and I'm excited about Dial of Destiny. Like I'm definitely in the camp of like, this is a bad idea, don't do it. But like now that it's happening, I got to watch it.
that makes sense.
And I'm a little more optimistic because Spielberg's not directing it. He directed all the others.
Okay.
But it's being directed by James Mangold, who directed the X-Men movie Logan. I don't know if you've seen that.
I
but that's-
haven't, but I know what it is.
That's a little more violent than my typical taste, but it's sort of a proven track record that he can take a character and tell a story about this character in their sunset years. Not that Hugh Jackman is anywhere near as old as Harrison Ford, who's well in his 80s, but
Oh my goodness.
yeah, I think now is the time for Indiana Jones.
All right.
I've read the comics, I've read the novels, but you only have to watch the movies. Okay.
The extent of my experience with Indiana Jones
Okay.
is watching Minnesota Cucumber from VeggieTales.
I've never seen that, so I'll watch Minnesota
It's pretty
Cucumber.
fun.
All
I'm
right,
not
I'll
gonna
watch
lie.
it.
In a very VeggieTales way,
All right.
I think you'll enjoy that.
It's a good time to be an Indiana Jones fan because the movie, like I said, the new movie's coming out, and also Disney Plus is putting the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which was a series.
Oh, okay.
Which has been kind of like, you just can't watch it. It's impossible to find unless you have like old DVDs. So that's going to be on Disney Plus as well. So you don't have to check out that, but I might dip into that a little bit and watch. Amazing to me that there's never been an Indiana Jones cartoon. Doesn't that just seem like...
I do feel like that would make sense.
Like the time when it came out, it seemed like everything got a cartoon, but no, nothing. Anyway. All right. Well, folks, in 2 weeks, we'll be back just talking about what we're reading and watching during this quiet time before we get back to the Indiana Jones spotlight, where Allie will never again be able to say that she's never seen
That's true. This is the turning point
frame
in
of
my
Indiana
life.
Jones. A big moment for you. A big moment for you. All right, gang. Don't forget to rate and subscribe, as people say. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Facebook at David A. Howe Public Library, on Twitter at DA Howe Library. What's the Tumblr, Allie?
It's But Have You Tried?
But Have You Tried? Right there. Thanks again to Corey Loon for our awesome theme songs.
Yes,
Every time I hear
every
them,
time.
I'm like a bopping
It's
to
such
them.
a bop.
So
Yep.
I love it. All right. See you next time, everybody.